Good evening, everyone. Tonight I would like to first start off discussing the role of the man era to that of today, and then we're going to take a look at the current status of teacher expectations and address both the pros and cons to performance pay based on student achievement. Beginning with Horace Mann, he was first born in Franklin, Massachusetts, where he started his professional career off as a lawyer and then moved into legislation. It wasn't until 1837 that he actually began to focus his political career on the public education, where he became the secretary to Massachusetts State Board of Education in 1837 until 1848. At the time, the Democratic parties believed in a very laissez-faire approach to civic institutions, which left most concerns regarding schools up to the local communities. As secretary to the state board, he was to collect the information regarding these conditions and make necessary recommendations that would improve these situations. Over the next decade of his career, he created a system of common schools that became the model for the nation, and today he is best known as one of our fathers of American public schools. Because of Mann's ability to work with these districts, he was able to collect the necessary information that would later lay the groundwork for common school reforms. He found schools to be in chaos. Buildings were insufficient, and teachers were definitely lacking insufficient and appropriate training. As a result of this, Mann not only endorsed the State Board of Education, but sought legislation to create a Department of Public Instruction in the national government, which today we continue to see supports not only at the local, but the state and national level as well. Schools also traditionally reflect teaching methods and values commonly practiced and taught in the home or school setting. He believed these systems the school systems needed to develop their own set of common moral values and that could improve society and humanity. He felt the children were given, if they were given proper moral and religious education, they would essentially grow into the effective citizens needed to sustain the industrial development at the time, and would also maintain the development of democracy in the great American states. This was a very difficult area and transition for the church and the school systems because the church had so much influence in the educational system. And it actually wasn't until the mid-20th century that the U.S. Supreme Court actually eliminated religious references and rituals within the public school setting. When we look at standardized curricula and testing of individuals today, we also go back to the Mann era. Mann believed that all people adapt and are going to adjust to their context basically the same way. He argued that it's not that individuals differ, but the social contents that shapes the individual. Mann saw individuals in mechanistic terms. Like Benjamin Rush before him, he believed that pupils could become Republican machines. He stressed uniformity of human development so much, this essentially led to the introduction of standardized curriculum and testing of individuals that we still see today. One of Mann's most endearing legacies was how he changed the view that children must have the devil beaten out of them. Mann used insights in the nature of social psychology and the nature that children were a rational being. Physical punishment instilled fear, so the use of love and logic would essentially win the affection of the child. However, for teachers to have that ability, that skill to instill the love and logic, they needed to understand how to be adequately prepared to understand the child, have classroom management, and understand specific subject matter, which many teachers during this time, bringing us to the last point regarding the Mann era, the quality of teachers. He argued that the common school teachers needed specific training and preparation in order to be effective and effectively teach the content necessary. They needed to understand the learning process. They needed to develop classroom organization and management skills. Rather than go and change the education in the current colleges of the time, Mann created what is known as normal schools, where the focus on teaching methods, they focused on the teaching methods essential for preparing teachers how to teach. Though this model had flaws, it really instilled the need for teachers to have special preparation to be in the classroom as an educator. In the 1900s, the criterion for teacher quality was really based on having a high morale of character. In 2016, states are moving toward the inclusion of student progress on standardized tests as part of teacher evaluation. There are many pros and cons to this evaluation process under this new system. And ultimately, teachers could face dismissal from the classroom if viewed as ineffective. In an ideal world, it would make sense that teachers, like most other professions, would be expected to meet their weekly, monthly, quarterly quota, but our product is a child's performance. To expect a teacher to be paid or dismissed from the profession based on a subject who has multiple variables influence their performance on a test is not an effective means of determining if a teacher should be dismissed from the classroom. I think back to the traditional African proverb that is often quoted widely. It takes a village to raise a child. We teach our teachers and our staff that these are all of our children. It's not just the responsibility of one individual. It takes a village to raise a child, to educate a child. There are so many people involved in a child's educational performance that putting that on one person is not ideal. Is test performance a factor that should be looked at? Absolutely, but not the only deciding factor. Tools being used to evaluate teachers are not always best practices. Rigorous and accurate evaluations must take place in order to provide educators with realistic, meaningful feedback on their performance and a clear path toward improvement. With that, a pro to incentive pay would force districts to look more closely at their evaluation process and focus on how they are providing the necessary feedback in order to support these teachers and work with their weaknesses and their strengths. It would also drive promotions and the seeking of more professional development, which ideally would increase the effectiveness of your teachers in the classroom. Those teachers then who do not have the drive would be weeded out and essentially should be dismissed. If they're not willing to make the overall changes to become a more highly qualified and effective teacher in the classroom, based on a multitude of reasons, dismissal would be appropriate. But at this time, looking solely on student performance, it takes a village to raise a child. And us as educators, they are all our children, and we work together to see these children make achievements. So with that, I do not think it is feasible to do incentive pay based on testing results. So with that, I thank you and have a good night.